Lifers, welcome back to the 1010 podcast. I'm Jazlyn Smith, and this is
Olivia,
and we are here filling in for my mom again for week 3 of the relationship mini-series on the 1010 podcast. So we've covered so far singleness, we covered dating in the second episode, and today we're going to be talking about engagement and what it means, what it looks like in that season. We're going to share our experiences of the highs and lows of engagement, the scary parts, the fun parts, what it's like to plan a wedding, maybe some things that if you're going into this season or you think you might be soon, just some advice, things to maybe try or avoid, because it can be a stressful time but can also be a really beautiful time. So we're going to dive in and talk about engagement today. All right, Olivia.
Yes.
Should we start by just sharing our own stories, maybe some funny things leading up to engagement, like when you first started talking about it, what that was like with you and your husband before you got engaged?
Yes. I feel like it already feels like it was so long ago. It kind of goes by so quickly. We had a pretty short engagement, but just in general, time flies when you're planning something that big, like a wedding. Goes by really quickly. But we got engaged in December of 2023. I think it was like the week before Christmas, or
It was December 18th.
You're so good at dates. That's terrible that I didn't even know. I'm sure if I thought hard enough, I could remember.
Well,
but
to be fair, like I knew that you were getting engaged that day weeks before.
Yeah.
I already knew. And so that date is like stuck in my mind. You had no idea on that day.
I had no idea. So we, I think I shared in the podcast last week that we talked about marriage pretty early in our dating relationship and had decided probably within like the first month of dating that we wanted to get married. And so from there on out, once you start talking about marriage in your relationship, it's kind of like you just, it's hard to not go all in, right? Which I feel like we did a good job of, of kind of like balancing that, and we weren't crazy. But as a girl, it's easy to like dive in. I remember like the night after London had said like, yeah, I think we should get married. And I like the next day I'm like going on Pinterest, like engagement rings, looking up like all this stuff. But we dated all through the summer, and then Christmas came around and I had no idea that it was coming. I knew obviously we were going to get engaged because we wanted to get married, and that's kind of the first step. But I had no idea. I was so surprised. Whoa.
That was not subtle.
We had planned, I had told London the only thing I wanted for our engagement was for my family to be there. And so he planned this whole day trip to Leavenworth with his family, and his mom like disguised it as we're going to like look at the lights and like we're just going to spend a family day in Leavenworth. And I was so oblivious because I kind of forced myself to be oblivious because I wanted it to be a surprise, and I knew that if I tried hard enough I could spoil it for myself. But I really wanted it to be like, I know he's put so much work into this, and I feel like it would be ruining that on his part to like, I don't know, spoil it for myself. So we went to Leavenworth, and he proposed on, like, if you're familiar with Leavenworth, by the Post Hotel, there's like a really cute bridge that goes over the river, and it was like snowy and beautiful. And then my family came out and we're all there, and then we all went out to dinner, and it was fun and just like felt very intimate and just like cozy. And that was just really what I wanted. Like we're both pretty like low key, chill people. I didn't want like a big anything. And so it was really sweet. And then after that, it was just let the games begin pretty much. And it was just diving right in. It was so fun. I feel like it was, as soon as he proposed, I kind of like blacked out. Like, you know, he gets on one knee and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening. And then the rest of the night just kind of feels like, I don't even know what happened.
Right.
But it was really sweet and it was perfect. Yeah. And now we're married.
Did you guys talk about, did he ever ask you, like, is there a certain way you want to be asked? Or, like, do you want people to be there? Did you guys talk about any of that? Or did you just leave everything?
I think I just kind of left everything. I literally, I never thought I was going to be this way, but like I didn't even really tell him what kind of ring I wanted. Like he picked out my ring. He decided how he was going to propose, like everything. I was just I always thought I was going to be more like, I want it to be a certain way. But I think when it really came down to it, I just was like, I just want to spend the rest of my life with you. And I don't really care. Yeah. Like
That's
it's
so good.
sweet memories and good pictures, but I would rather have a good life than a good engagement, you know?
Yeah. And
But-
everyone's different. And some
Yes.
people are way pickier about things and like how things go. But I think what you're saying is so important to keep in mind of like, it's so much more than just a day and just getting what you want. It's nice to get what you want. It's nice to plan things and all of that. And that's not wrong. But like, make sure first you're like, am I putting the priorities where they should be?
Right.
Like, am I making this about me, my selfishness, or is this really about like, I found the person I love and it could be any ring. It could be any way he asked me.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think as a girl too, it can be really easy to make the whole experience like about you. And like, in some ways I think it is because like he's asking you to marry him, but also it's like, it goes both ways. And so I think it was really special to like have an intimate engagement and feel like, yeah, this is like our moment. And it's not like my moment to be like, I just got engaged. It's like, no, we're getting married. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I feel like it's really easy to get into a headspace of like, me. Even like, I know this is kind of jumping ahead, but like in like wedding planning, we've talked about this before. It's so easy to be like, yeah, for my wedding. Our wedding. Like it's so easy to do that, which it's so totally like subconscious. You're not even thinking about it, but I did that a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, oh, sorry. Like not personal.
There's so many fun little things that happen leading up to getting engaged. I remember when you got engaged, London asked Dad. He went out to breakfast with him, I think, and just asked him for permission. And I remember you just like stalking him.
Yes,
and,
that's true. I forgot about that.
And even like when he bought you a ring.
Yeah.
I don't know I can't remember if you knew.
Yes.
But you had like been stalking him on Find My iPhone and or Find My Friends. Sorry, I don't mean to expose you, but we all do it.
Yes.
I did it too, where you're just like, you know what's happening, so you're
Well,
just
I
watching.
actually like I saw it because his mom. I follow his mom on like Be Real. If you know what Be Real is, it's like a social media, and she had posted this picture on her Be Real. She was with London and London's brother Brayden, and they were all three together. And I was like, they don't normally like all three just like go do something. And it was in the middle of the day, so I was like, oh, I wonder what they're doing. So then I like went to his location. And like, they're at Shane Co. He's getting me a ring, and then of course you just like spiral into all that.
Yes, of course.
And I remember like Dad. Dad is so funny. The best thing about Dad is that like he is a girl dad, like all girls in our family, so he just like gets really like giddy about things and like excited, and in the most masculine way ever.
Yeah,
So,
he's just a proud dad.
Yes, and I remember like we were sitting in the living room, and I had just come home from work, and he's like, so guess what? And I was like, what? He's like, someone texted me today. And I was like, oh, like who? Like I had no idea. I was like, who texted you? He's like, London texted me and wants to go get breakfast together. I was like,
What does it mean?
yes. And then of course I was like, I probably shouldn't have known that. Like it was probably supposed to be a secret. So then I never said anything to London, and London never said anything to me. Even after they went to breakfast, like I knew like that morning I like hadn't heard from him at all, and it was like noon, and I literally hadn't heard from him, and I knew he was out with Dad, and he just like never said anything. And I remember he like picked me up that night. We were gonna go out, so I was like, so what did you do today? He's like, oh, nothing, just like hung out. And I was like, okay, should I say something?
Liar.
But I didn't say anything because I was like, maybe he
Just
doesn't
go
want
along
to talk
with
about
it.
it. Yeah, but I was like, we both know that I know
That's so
something
funny.
happens today. That's
Yeah.
cute. Do you remember like I'm trying to remember the timeline of when Riley. I remember the day Riley went out with Dad. Didn't they
Yeah.
go out for like coffee or something?
Breakfast.
Was it breakfast?
Yeah, it's breakfast
Yeah.
at Alexa's Cafe,
Oh.
which is where we're having our rehearsal dinner, which is really
Oh,
special because I didn't
cute.
even know that. Okay, yeah, I'll share a little bit about my engagement story. I remember we had a conversation in December, like before you guys were engaged, and we were like it was for the first time we were like really serious about, all right, I think we want to like get married. There were some things that we were just waiting on. Like, I think we just wanted to experience like a few things together before we're like ready. And I remember we led worship together we guest led at a church together. And that day was like the day I felt like it just like settled for me what we were going to get married, because that leading worship with my husband is something that I've like always dreamed about. And we had done worship together, but typically it was like Riley was playing bass and I was leading. But to have that experience with him where we were like, it was just us two at a church that we didn't know a ton of people at, and we had that experience together leading, where I felt like, wow, this is something. I already knew I like loved him and that his character and everything lined up, but to like experience that with him, I was like, okay, I think we're gonna get married. Like after today, I was like, yeah, this is the one. And that same day, I think that week before, he had started asking me about like what type of a ring I wanted, because he knew I was kind of picky, and like I'm not a brat picky, but
no,
like
but you know what you like.
Yeah, we had the conversation, and he was like, I want to like get you what you want, and we started like talking about it and like looking online, and it just felt so illegal. Like,
yeah,
I was like,
it does.
Am I allowed to be doing this? Is this like for real? I still felt a little bit of that, like I don't want to get my hopes up.
Yeah.
But I knew Riley, and I knew that he had shown me that he's the type of person that when he talks about something, he's not just gonna say it and not do anything about it. And at that point, we hadn't talked to my parents or anything like that about it. They knew where we were at in our relationship, but we hadn't had like
the conversation.
Hey dad, hey mom, or, So that day after church that we led together, we were driving past Bellevue. We went to the mall to like go do something or something like that, and we walked past one of the jeweler stores, and he was like, do you want to go shopping? I was like, oh, you mean like shopping. And the funniest thing, I was like, yes, I do. I was so nervous. Like, hey, we walk in the mall. It's like Christmas time, so it's all Christmassy. There's a guy playing piano. He's playing Frank Sinatra on the piano. And it was just like the dreamiest. I was like, I had butterflies in my stomach.
My word.
I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so surreal. And I looked down, and my ring finger nail had popped off.
Oh,
I was wearing
sad.
press-ons, and I was like, this is not okay. I had it still because it fell off during church. And I was like, I really want to look at rings. But I was like, I will not go in there with one missing finger, especially the finger that is what the ring will be on. So we went to Sephora, and I bought nail glue, and I stuck the nail back on.
Oh my word.
And then we went looking. That's just a funny, like jazzy detail.
Yeah.
It's like so me.
Yeah.
And I just remember that experience with him, like going to the store. I was like you said, that blackout feeling when you're nervous and you just don't know what's happening. That's how I felt the whole time. Because I was like, I can't believe I'm like with a man at a like ring store, and we're looking at rings, and he wants to buy me one. Like, it was just crazy. Really sweet to do that and just like start looking. And then I think that night I came home and told mom and dad, I was like, I think we're gonna get married. And they were like, okay, well, here we go,
Here we go again.
And I think what was funny about our family in that season was they knew like Olivia would be getting engaged, and I knew a few weeks later. And so that was something that was unique to us, of like, we're in the same season together, getting married 4 months apart.
Yeah.
And getting engaged within a month of each other. And so a lot for our family to go through. Anyways, so I remember the day Riley talked with dad. I think he had already bought the ring at that point, and we were like going for it. And so we didn't have any worries that my dad was going to be not okay with it. But that's a value that I think like we hold and our family holds, of it's really cool to have your parents' blessing. And I know it's different for a lot of families, whether you come from a different background or you just have a different family dynamic. But for me, and you as well, I just wanted that blessing. And I know Riley wanted that too. And it's really just so relieving to have the blessing of the people around you as you're going into that season, because truly you're separating from your family and you're joining with your husband to create a new family. And it's so hard to start anything from the ground up. Yeah. And so imagine like starting a life with nothing, with no support or no blessing. that meant a lot. And so I think that was in December. We had a great January, and I was like thinking, I knew that he was going to propose. I think originally it was going to be March or February, maybe. Yeah, like around Valentine's Day, maybe a little after that. And so that's what was happening in my mind. And I remember we went to visit my grandparents in Arizona. They rented a house there, and we went and spent the week with them. And that whole week, had no idea that this was January, like end of January. Had no idea that end of that week I would actually be getting engaged, because we got back from the trip on Thursday, and then Friday, Riley went to work and got a call that the ring was ready a month early. And so he went and picked it up. It was in the car. We hung out Friday. It was in the car with us the whole day. And I guess he called, like, did he call you?
Yeah, he called me. It was on like a Friday, and I was home because I don't know why I was home. Anyways, I get a call from Riley, and I'm like, hey, what's up? And you're home. Like, we're in the same house together.
Yeah.
And he's like, I just like, I got the ring, and I need to do this right now. And I'm like what? Like, what? Like, slow down. What's happening? He's like, it's literally burning a hole in my pocket.
Done.
Yeah. He's like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do you think? And so I remember, like, I'm like, well, shoot, like, Jazzy's here. I need to, like, go hide. So I was, like, in the garage and, like, pacing in the garage. I'm like, well, like, obviously, like,
have you seen her today?
Want. Yeah. He was like, I want to do it tonight. And I was like, I just was with Jazzy, and I don't think she's ready.
Like, I think I was,
a grubby day.
I just got back from a vacation, and I was, like,
I think you had,
hair
like, gone
greasy,
to Pilates that morning. And you
worked out. I was just not looking cute.
Yeah, and you guys were just going to hang out at the house. So he was like, I was like, I know Jazzy, and I know obviously she would be so thrilled if you proposed, but I think maybe you should, like, come up with a plan. So he was like, okay. And I was like, maybe pray about it for a minute. Like, let's kind of come up with a plan.
Pray about
obviously,
it.
you would have looked great, however. Yeah. But I'm like, you want to look good.
No, I do. I did want to look good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then that next day, Riley was supposed to work. Like, it was clear. He has a schedule and doesn't deviate from it because he needs to get his work done. And so I was like, okay, I'm just going to have the day. I'm going to get myself together, get ready for the next week. And then that night before he left, he was like, hey, do you want to hang out tomorrow? And I was like, I thought you had to work. Mm-hmm. He's like, no. He's like, I'll just do it early in the morning, then I'll come over. And so that was when I was kind of like, what? Okay. And I think my family had been acting a little weird. Like, Dad was acting all giddy.
It's Dad.
He was just like humming around the house, like just like just smiling. And
I remember in hindsight, he was like that the morning I got engaged too. And I also remember I was getting ready in the bathroom, like doing my makeup, and everyone was in the bathroom watching me do my makeup. And I was just like, guys. And I remember, like, Ava was like, I was like, should I try and do, like, eyeliner today? She's like, no, because, like, you don't really do eyeliner, so, like, maybe it won't look good. Like, you should just stay.
Savage.
Like, okay. And I remember, like, everyone was so invested in, like, my outfit. I'm like,
yeah, this is a little interesting.
There's little signs.
Yeah, there were tons of little signs. So he was like, yeah, we'll hang out tomorrow. We'll drive to our favorite breakfast place in Gig Harbor. And then we'll go to that one park that we really love, and then we'll take the ferry back. We'll say hi to my parents and whatever. You know, it's gonna be a super fun day. And I was like, we don't usually, like, plan out our days like that.
Like,
typically we kind of just go for it. And so I was like, all right. And as soon as he left, I was like, it's happening. And I fake tanned because I wanted all that. And I had gotten my nails done that day, but no one in the family at that point knew that I was gonna get engaged. Yeah. It was just chance. And my nails were done. I made sure I was looking a little tan for photos. I did my eyebrows, like all the things.
Yeah.
I got ready, and then Saturday he came to pick me up, and Dad was like, what are you guys doing today?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, we're just doing
Way
this.
too invested.
And I remember he was like, oh, your outfit's cute today. And I was like, what? Thank you, Dad. Like,
he's like, do you want me to make you your coffee so you're not late?
Yeah, exactly. And then Mom, she was more just like avoiding all conversation.
Yes, because she would say
because she cannot keep a secret.
She didn't keep a secret, but, like, when it's your daughter or, like, someone in your family, I remember I was like, you would ask me a question about Riley, and I just was like, I don't know. I can't talk about it. I have to go to the bathroom. Like, it's so hard because in a house of girls, like, we all tell each other everything.
Yeah.
Especially when you're, like, dating, and it's like, I don't know. Like, it's fun to like talk about fun stuff. And so it was such a hard secret.
Yeah, I was like, I think he's going to propose tomorrow? And you
I
were
was like, I don't think so.
I don't think he would. Like, he said he was going to next month. I don't think he has the ring yet. And I was like, okay.
I remember we were sitting in the nail salon and he texted me a picture of the ring and you were sitting right next to me. And I remember I was like, oh my gosh, Riley, what the heck? Like, stop. She's sitting right next to me.
No way.
Like,
oh, that's crazy.
yeah.
So, okay, I'll just quickly go over the engagement because I feel like I've been sharing for a while, but it's just so fun. I love talking about it. And then he picked me up. We go to breakfast. We're sitting at breakfast, and this is the funniest part.
I forgot about this.
Basically, we had friends that Riley had arranged taking photos at the park, the location, and they were hiding out behind a bush so that we could walk up and we wouldn't see them, but they filmed the whole thing. And so he was communicating with them about where we were at, what time we were going to get to the park. He tries to text our friend Isaac, and he says, hey, Riley texts Isaac, who's hiding out with the camera. Hey guys, there's a wait at the restaurant. It's looking like it's gonna happen. I'm gonna do it at 2. There's a wait at the restaurant. I'm gonna do it at 2. Sends it, but Mr. Riley made a huge mistake and he sent it to me. Like, he was probably just adrenaline, like nervous, not thinking, and just instinct kicked in. He texted that to me. I had gone to the bathroom like right then, and so I saw it right away. Like within 15 seconds, he unsent it. But I had already seen it and screenshotted it.
Oh my gosh, that's horrible.
And I wish that I hadn't seen that because I know he probably felt so just like, man, like I just ruined it, even though I kind of knew he was acting nervous and stuff. I walk out of the bathroom and I just try so hard to act like I didn't see it. But I was like trying to avoid eye contact. Mm-hmm. I was actually like tearing up because I was like, so like, oh my gosh, it's happening. And I'm like, I cannot look at him. After like 2 minutes of just not looking at each other, because we both knew that we had seen it. We looked at each other and both just start like laughing, crying, just like so giggly, and like no words were said for the 40 minutes that we were waiting for our table because we were just like,
what just happened?
Like so looking at each other, just laughing. And then we hardly ate any of our food, I feel like, because we were just like, let's go. Yeah. Let's go. I know it's happening. So then we met and we walked around the park for a little bit. And I was like, where's it going to happen? Mm-hmm. And then we went up to this field and they had stuck a stick in the ground so that Riley would know where to stand. That would be in the camera shot. I still didn't realize that they were going to be there. Mm-hmm. Well, I guess I don't know why I didn't realize that, even though you were texting someone. I thought maybe it was like our families or something there. And then he got down on one knee and gave a beautiful little spiel of love and then asked me to marry him. And that same thing, that blackout feeling of just like, I don't remember anything. Yeah. Like literally like my mascara was running and it was like covering up the corners of my eyes. And I literally thought I was going to pass out because it was like getting dark. Yeah. And just so fun. And I'm glad that we have a video and pictures of that because I don't remember hardly anything that happened. And then our friends popped out and we all just celebrated together for a bit, took photos. It was the best day. Yeah. And I wasn't prepared for how like emotional that day was. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure it's different for everybody. Mm-hmm. But we didn't do anything crazy that day. Like we met mom and dad for dinner and got dinner with them and then came back to the house and hung out with you in London. I remember and watched a fight.
Like a UFC fight or something. No, we went in the hot tub.
Yeah, we went in the hot tub and just like hung out at home. And it was so fun. I loved how chill it was. Yeah. Because there was just like so much to process. Yeah. And I knew that I wasn't going to be able to process everything in that day because it's like this.
It's really overstimulating. Like in a good way. You're so excited, but there's just like so many emotions that it's like I don't even know where to begin. Because you've like your whole life it feels like your whole life is leading up to this moment, especially like and then your relationship, and you're just like, I've been dreaming about this day and now it's here. Like,
you really can't prepare yourself for it. And it's crazy how quickly things shift in your relationship. Like that day, we're like, whoa. We just felt like a way stronger of a connection and bond because there was like a public like declaration of this is the person I'm choosing. And I just remember that whole day I was like so excited. Just like none of the planning had started. You're just kind of sitting in this is what I've done it.
Yeah.
Like we're doing it. It's happening. And yeah, so that was the story. However your engagement turns out, it really is just so special. And it's so individual to however you want it to look. But I think it's helpful to, if you have expectations of like what you want it to be, there's nothing wrong with expressing that. And I remember like Riley would ask like, do you want people there? Do you want, just to help me? Cause we're all different and I feel like I like to process differently. And so, yeah, I think it's totally okay to have those conversations about like, what do you want it to look like?
Yeah.
What's most meaningful to you? And you really feel so loved. So yeah, it was everything I.
How long after that do you feel like you like dove into the planning process of like, now I have a wedding to plan?
Pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The first thing we did was order invitations, design and order them. I think we did that the week after, like a week after. A whole week I took, we didn't do anything. I just was dreaming about it and like thinking about what I want. We were also busy with your wedding because you were getting married like 2 months later. And so I remember I waited until your wedding was over to do a lot of things, but probably like that next week because I was just so excited.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a huge engagement. Like it was just about 5 months of being engaged. So we had a lot to do. What about you? How quickly did you dive in?
I remember because it was right before Christmas. And I remember I was like, I don't want to miss out on Christmas because I'm like focusing on this. So I think we waited until like the week after Christmas. And then I remember like 2 of our sisters, Ava and Talia, were home for Christmas. And so I was like, okay, this is a good time the week after to like start planning. And I remember like, the first thing we did was design and order invitations because we had a 3-month engagement. So it was pretty quick. So I was like, I feel like I need to get
going.
Yes, get a good start on this stuff. That was the first thing I did. And then just kind of like, it's pretty overwhelming at first because it's like, oh my gosh, where do I even start?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not like I don't like to plan things. I don't like to like, not that I don't like to, but it just is not a natural instinct for me to like be an organizer and like plan things. So that was really hard. Luckily, our mom is really good at that kind of stuff. And we have a lot of good friends that jumped in and a house full of girls get things done. And then the week after that, I went dress shopping.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And I bought my dress.
Quick. Yeah.
Yes.
And it was the first dress you tried on.
First dress I tried on. I tried on like 5 dresses. And then, it was the first one I had tried on. And I was like, let's do it.
It's
and
so
I bought
fun.
it. And then bought my shoes. And I feel like I tried to get like the big things out of the way.
Yeah.
Just because I wanted to feel like I'm doing something. Yeah. And then it was like, I have to ask my bridesmaids and all the stuff.
Yeah.
And
it can feel very overwhelming. And there's a lot of things. You're out of engagement now. And I'm nearing the end of it. I get married in 15 days.
Crazy.
And so I really feel that like, it's similar to like when you're in high school and you're like ready to graduate and you should be because you're a senior and then you're like, okay, we're out of there.
Yes.
I feel that way of like ready to graduate from engagement because you're not supposed to be engaged forever. And I do recommend shorter engagements as opposed to longer ones. I think that's just hard to be engaged for a long time unless there's special circumstances like long distance or whatever life situations. But it's kind of like a ticking time bomb in a way of you're growing together, you're building a life. And so it's just wise, I think, to plan your engagement and your timeline like well. I just wanted to share, we can kind of go off of these things. I had 4 things that I felt like I'm in the middle of learning in engagement. And I think they're pretty across the board, like typical of what most girls learn. And maybe you can hop in and share your experience on those things. But the first thing that I've been learning in engagement and all that is that there are going to be stressful moments in the wedding planning process, but it's important to keep the bigger picture in mind throughout all of it. Don't get too caught up in the small things that don't really matter. And that's way easier to say than it is to live out because there are tons of little things that I really just like got too invested in that really didn't matter and I let stress me out. And whether it's like a certain decor piece that you're like, I want to have this, and if it doesn't happen, like my wedding's gonna be a disaster.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why we always go to the extremes of that.
Nobody's gonna come to my wedding if these invitations are ugly.
Yes, I know. It's like, what? No,
Yeah.
that's not really. But I don't know if you have anything to speak of that. Like, how do you keep the main thing
Yeah.
while you're planning a wedding? Which the main thing is, like you were talking about with your ring. It's not about a thing. It's not about a day.
Yeah.
It's about, I've found the person that God has for me, and we're going to start our life together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would recommend like something that was really helpful for me, and that was bringing other people in on the planning process and like kind of delegating some of those things, because it's kind of impossible to try and plan an entire wedding by yourself.
Impossible. Yeah.
And so bringing other people in on that can kind of like bring insight and be like, maybe that's not something you need to plan right now. Or like, maybe that's something I can take, and things like that, that can kind of help alleviate some of the like smaller details that really aren't detrimental to anything.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like I'm trying to remember if there were things, like obviously there were things that stressed me out. I do remember there was like one day, for the most part, I'm pretty just like, however things happen is how they happen. So I feel like with most of the wedding planning, I was just kind of like, yeah, like I remember our friend Tracy was helping with a lot of the planning, and she would come over and we'd like do planning, and she'd be like, what do you think about this, or like this for the wedding or this? I'd be like, I don't know, what do you think? Like, and then it kind of turned into a joke where like, it's not my wedding, it's Tracy's wedding. Like whatever Tracy says goes. But I do remember there was like one day where I'm pretty sure London was here, and like I think Riley was here and everyone was here. We were all like downstairs talking about the wedding, and I just like had a moment of like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. So I remember I like was like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and I like went upstairs to my room and just like started crying.
Oh,
and,
really?
Yeah, and I think there were some hormones going on, but I remember like mom came up to my room and was like, are you okay? And you know, it's the classic like, no. and I was just like, I'm trying to remember what specifically it was, but it was like something so simple that was just like sending me over the edge. Like I just cannot get over this one thing. And like mom was like,
what was it?
I really can't remember. Like it was, I don't know. It was something that was just like bothering me. I don't know. Like I think it was, I didn't have a dress for my rehearsal dinner, and our rehearsal dinner was like the next week. And I just was like, I don't know. Just like things that are so silly. Like it's a rehearsal dinner.
Yeah, but I get that, because you want to feel like, my irrational fear is like that I'm not going to feel pretty.
Yeah.
Or like ready when the day comes.
Yeah.
Because I don't have a dress for my rehearsal. But I'm like, I want to feel good.
Yeah. You don't have a dress for your rehearsal?
I need to get a dress for the rehearsal.
Because it's just one of those things where you're like, I have a whole wedding to plan, and now I have to think about a rehearsal dinner?
Yeah.
Like,
oh,
are you
I
kidding
forgot
me?
about that. I mean, you could wear whatever you want, but I just think like, you want to feel your best.
Yes.
And sometimes a dress will do that for you.
Oh,
and if you don't have it, it's stressful because it's hard to find.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
See, even now I'm spiraling
Yes.
into that.
Yeah, it's so like, and it's so silly when you sit back and think about it, and you're like, oh my gosh, like you'll look back. Even now I look back and I'm like, Olivia, that was so stupid. Like, why did you care? I'm sure you'll feel that way
but
about
in the moment,
certain things.
It's
so life or
real.
death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you gotta have grace for yourself. And what I wish I would have realized this sooner. You know, it's just a short season. So like, I feel like I wish that you just learn so quickly, but then it's like too late, because you're like, oh, it's over. I'm never gonna do this again. And I kind of was thinking this morning about the emotions and the stress of it, how it's kind of like the waves in the ocean. Like it's unpredictable when the moments are gonna come, but it's going to happen inevitably.
Yeah.
And so it's best to just recognize that, prepare for it, and then just like ride the wave, and just don't get stuck trying to like thank you. Don't get stuck trying to fight it, because you're going to exhaust yourself, and you're going to cry so much. But instead, it's like when you feel stressful, just take a step back. Like Riley would have to constantly tell me like, let's take a break from our registry. Like let's close the laptop.
Oh, the registry.
Let's stop looking for houses. You've been scrolling for 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like, let's just take a step back.
Yeah.
And it's easier. It's good to have your fiance help you in all the planning, but most of it is going to fall on the girl, because, that's just kind of how it goes. It doesn't have to be that way, but I think just practically it's hard to navigate that with two people. And so it's better if one person's like the designated planner. But Riley was really helpful and very supportive in that time of like, let's go on a walk. Like, let's take a break.
I just remembered the most stressful part of our wedding planning. This is so funny. It's going to make me cry. Okay. So I had the idea of, we had a dinner at our wedding, and so we had all these tables, and I was like, white was not one of the colors. I mean, like, obviously, like a wedding is like white, but like, I wanted things to be kind of like champagne, like pearl, softer. Like, yes. And so, I was like, me and my mom were trying to find tablecloths that were like a champagne or pearl color, and we didn't want to buy them new because they're so expensive, like the linen ones. And so we're like, let's look on like OfferUp or whatever and see if we can find. Basically, we found like half of what we needed in the champagne color, but the other half we could only find in white. So we were like, that's totally fine. Let's just buy the champagne ones, and then we'll buy the white ones, and we'll dye them ourselves. Simple. And so we're such DIY girls. And so we bought the white ones and the champagne ones, and it was like the week before the wedding. We were like, okay, let's start dyeing all these tablecloths. And we start the dyeing process with like the RIT dye. So we start to realize as we're starting this, like, this is a really bad idea, because if you've ever dyed something before, you have to fill a pot with boiling water, then you add the dye in, and then you put whatever the product is in. But they're tablecloths, so they're huge. Pot. And there's one pot, and we have like 40 tablecloths that we need to do. And so we're kind of like, oh my word, this is going to take forever. So then we're like, whatever, let's just test one of them. So we put one of them in the pot, and then we realized, oh my gosh, the tablecloths are polyester. Polyester does not take color. So they literally were not dyeing. And we're like, this is horrible. We were literally like, I remember our friend Tracy was over, and it was like 9:00 at night, and we were still trying to like figure this out. And we were like, oh my gosh, this is not working. And it was terrible. So we were like, let's just go to bed. We'll figure this out later. And then I remember Tracy left, and we were like, I had the idea. I was like, I'm so tired. I could use a coffee right now. Then I was like, coffee. Let's dye the tablecloths with coffee. And so my mom was like, brilliant. Like, where was Dad in all of this?
40 gallons
literally
of coffee.
We were like, get out the percolator, get out the espresso machine, get out the French press.
Where was Dad?
Well, Dad came in halfway through the 4th pot of coffee and was like, what are you doing? Stop. So what we were doing is we would lay one down in the washing machine, and then we would dump a pot of coffee on top of it, and we're like mixing it together, and it started to work. We were like, I literally feel like we were going crazy, because it was like now like 10:30 at night.
What was in that dye?
I literally don't know. And we're like pouring pots of coffee. Our eyes are like bugged out from like all the fumes and stuff. And we got like halfway through, and Dad came in, and he was like, this is not going to work. Like, the second you get it wet, the coffee is going to come out.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
So we're like, no, it won't. And then we tried it, and of course the coffee came right out. So then it was like, okay, so now we just won't wash them. We'll just dye the tablecloths, and we won't wash them and just leave them. So we dyed all the tablecloths. Then it was the day before the wedding, and they were like, some of them looked really bad.
Like, it's kind of
literally had like ground coffee like marks. And I remember we like laid out all the tablecloths, and a bunch of our friends like came to the church and were helping us iron the tables. Oh, I forgot. But after we did the coffee, we read online that you need to set the smell or set the color in like this vinegar water mixture. So then we mixed it in there. So then they smell like coffee vinegar mixed together. So then you let them dry. So we were at the church, and we're ironing all the tablecloths out, and the lobby of the sanctuary just smelled like
strange coffee,
vinegar coffee, like curdled coffee, and it was
and all our clothes smelled like coffee for a little bit.
Everything smelled like,
dyed them in the washing machine.
Yeah, but they turned out fine. And so if you're thinking about dyeing polyester tablecloths, don't. Just don't. And that, I remember, I think that was probably what set me over the edge and made me cry. Anyways, that was a whole tangent.
That was so funny.
It was hilarious. I forgot about it too. It was so stressful. That story is going
to bless some people.
It was like, I literally don't know why. And like, now what are we going to do with those tablecloths?
Use them for my wedding.
Coffee tablecloths?
No, we're going to sell them on OfferUp.
Yeah. So if you're in need of coffee colored tablecloths, let us know.
Let us know. Leave a comment.
We'll give you a deal.
That's so great.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I love that. Yeah, there's just lots to learn throughout the stress, but it's going to be okay. The second thing that I wrote down is let go of unrealistic expectations and pressures that you put on yourself. Mm-hmm. You don't need to look a certain way, have a certain body, or look like anyone else on your wedding day. Mm-hmm. Just rest in who God made you to be in this season and throw off all comparison. And that one's a more recent one that I feel like I've been feeling because like when you have a day like this that you dream about for your whole life, as a girl, just like, oh, I can't wait for my wedding day.
Yeah.
You have so many expectations. Even if you don't realize you have expectations for that day. And for me, I had a lot of expectations for myself on what I wanted to look like. I wanted to be at a certain place. I wanted to have certain things in line. And then all of a sudden I blinked and my wedding is in 15 days.
Yeah.
And I realized that I don't have time.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to happen. And I kind of had a little breakdown like recently about that all, just because I was just being so hard on myself and putting so much pressure. No one else was putting that pressure on me. And I think the root of it was comparison, where I was at the beginning, looking at a lot of other people, their weddings, like what they looked like, what they did, getting inspiration. But I really think I should have cut that off later on. And I did hear someone give that advice of like, at some point during your wedding process, you need to delete Pinterest and you need to delete Instagram and just be excited for the season that God has you in. And because I just think we have like so much pressure on brides and on girls. Like you need to be your fittest self. You need to have the clearest skin. Yeah. You need to, all these things that you're like, it's great to feel good and to be healthy, but a lot of the people that we're comparing ourselves to are just unrealistic. It's unrealistic and it's not true and it's not real. And I was not being kind to myself and I was not loving myself and just kind of was spiraling into this like trying to be someone else. And that is not what this is about. Yeah. Like, how unfair is that to me, but also like to my fiance of like, he's not asking me to change. He's not asking me to look a certain way. And it was just this whole thing that I realized, like, I've been working myself to exhaustion because I'm trying to look a certain way. Yeah. When in reality, like, I just need to stop and rest and take care of myself. Because it takes all the joy
out of the planning. And I think that's kind of where it comes to a point where you're like, you need to take a step back and be like, am I making this process about the day of my wedding, or am I preparing myself for marriage, a life with my spouse and my husband and a family someday? And that was like, I agree, that is really hard because it's an important day. Like by all means, it's an important day. You're standing before God and your friends and family and making a vow to one another, but it's also just a day. Like at the end of it, it's over. And like so many people, I'm sure you've heard this so many times, that like it goes by so fast and like remember every moment, and like it really does go by so fast. But also like when you look back, there's so many things that I don't regret anything about our engagement, but there's so many things where I'm like, that was so unnecessary to like put that much thought into. Like I would have way rather like thought about, oh, how is this gonna affect me after we're married, or like how is this gonna like affect my emotional state once we are husband and wife. And I think like working yourself into exhaustion during, like what you're saying, during your engagement is like, what good does that do anyone? Because then you get married and then what? Then you're just burnt out and you're like, like you're not going to keep up that whatever. But it's hard. And that's just part of growing up and figuring out life. And there are different things that I'm sure we'll talk about in the next podcast. Like with marriage, there's different things like that. Just in every season of life, there's certain expectations you put on yourself, or like different things like that. And it's just learning how to, again, like set boundaries for your own mind and for your own emotions. And it's hard. It is, but I'm glad that I am learning that lesson of just letting go of comparison and
trying to be something that like you don't need to be.
Yeah.
And realizing that like your fiance loves you for who you are, and that's why they chose you. And then also like we were talking about how if I'm trying to like look a certain way by the wedding, but then forgetting like, wait, I have my whole life.
Yeah.
Like it's not like my life doesn't end at the wedding, you know, but you put these dates in your mind of like, it needs to be done by this date. And if not, I failed.
Yeah.
Because that was like what I was feeling like, oh, I failed. I failed at what I was trying to do because I didn't have enough time or whatever. I wasn't realistic with the timeline that I was given. And just realizing like, okay, like it doesn't, on that day, I want to start setting myself up to be happy on that day. Like, and that starts now.
Yeah.
And like, I'm going to choose to be content now so that when the wedding day comes, I'm not dealing
like,
with these emotions then.
You won't like care about that on the morning of your wedding. Like that's going to be the last thing on your mind.
Right.
Like I don't remember feeling any of the stresses that I thought I was going to feel on the morning of my wedding. Because I'm like, I'm getting married today.
Yep. And you're just so
gives
excited.
A flip about anything.
We're going on vacation.
Yeah.
So it's going to be great.
Yeah.
Anyways, the third thing, you kind of already talked about this, but lean into the people around you. Don't isolate and try to do everything on your own in this season. It's better to share this time with those who love you and will support you. And so like you said, like, let's not try to do everything on our own. But in this season, I have made such good friendships that I didn't expect to happen. Asking people to help with certain things, meeting with them, planning together. And I'm really thankful that I've asked different people to help or, you know, give their services for different things.
Yeah.
It's been really fun and a blessing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's fun. It's also good to like, it kind of helps you take the focus off of yourself and just like remind yourself, oh, this is our wedding.
Yep.
And like remember that like, oh yeah, it's good to, and it's just in life in general, it's good to bring other people alongside, and it helps the memories feel sweeter because you're like, oh, I remember during my wedding planning when we did this together.
Yes,
and like,
exactly.
I think it helps you just feel like complete.
Yeah.
Like, yes.
I agree.
And if you don't have people like that, we will be that for
Ask
you.
us.
We'll help you with your wedding.
We will. We've got lots of skill now.
Yes.
The last thing before we get ready to wrap up is don't forget to keep dating and growing in love with your fiance. It gets better and better the more you grow together.
Yes.
And really, engagement is so much better than dating when it comes to relationship and just feeling committed to someone and just having that safety net. It's so beautiful. And then growing in vulnerability. There's lots of hard conversations that need to happen during engagement with pre-marriage counseling that I would really recommend doing.
Yes.
It's really good to just have somebody to lead those conversations and almost say the things that you're afraid to say and help start those conversations.
Help facilitate the conversation after that.
Yeah, totally. Give you words to describe things. There's tough things you got to talk about, and but it should make your relationship stronger as you learn to talk about those things and just realize like we're in it together.
Yeah.
And this person's not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. We're past that point. We've already decided. And so keep dating, go on dates. You know, money's probably tight around that time.
Dating might look different.
Yeah, you don't have to go on crazy dates, but just spend quality time together.
Your date might be going to look at an apartment together and see if that's where you want to live.
Building furniture.
Or, oh my gosh, I never want to build furniture again.
Or writing addresses to send out.
Yeah.
That was the worst part of engagement. It was our invitations. I just decided to do them all by hand. And I loved them, but I just feel like it was this never-ending process.
Yeah. And the pearls, Jazzy's invitations had hand-pressed pearls all over the front. And I remember there was a day where it was like me, you, Riley, London, and I think maybe Ava was there.
And then her friends from college.
Yes. And we were like all pushing these pearls onto, and I remember like Riley and London, obviously they're men, so they have like bigger fingers, and they're trying to like pick up these tiny pearls, and they're like flying everywhere.
So cute.
Yes, but they were great. Invested.
Yeah. Don't underestimate or don't forget to involve your fiance in even the things that you don't think he'd be good at, because
we had to create a what is it called?
Template?
Like a template. Like we set it in front of Riley London. We're like, copy these pearl placements exactly. They were getting so good at like
Don't
the
deviate.
Yeah, do not deviate from the plan. This is not the time for creativity.
It's so fun. The whole season is really fun.
Yeah, it is.
I'm excited to be married though, because it's just
it's
time
just
to be done
different.
being engaged. It's just different. Yeah. So yeah. Do you have any other closing thoughts? I feel like we
hit it all.
Yeah. I mean, there's things we didn't talk about, of course, but there's so much to cover.
Yeah. No, engagement is fun. It's its own unique kind of fun, but it's good. It's sweet, but now that it's over, I'm like, oh yeah, I like marriage.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Engagement was fun, but I'm happy being married.
There's no other, it kind of feels like your birthday the whole time.
Yeah.
That's kind of,
except, okay, one thing, this is like gonna sound kind of terrible, but one thing I was like so ready to be over was like, I was so ready for people to stop asking me about wedding plans. I know that sounds so horrible, but I just like, that stressed me out. People like, how's the wedding planning going? Like, I don't know. Like, it just stressed me out. And so I was like, now that I'm married, I feel like people can ask Jazzy.
and I'm getting ready for that to be done. No,
like, it's sweet. And that sounds terrible, but like, and I appreciated it. But it also was just like, I don't know.
How much time do you have?
Yeah, exactly. Like, sit down.
You really want to know.
Would you like to help me
Yeah.
and press these pearls?
Yeah, seriously.
It's fun though.
Yeah. Well, I think that's all we have to say.
Yes.
And with that, this episode is closed.
Yeah, join us next week for our mom is back next week.
Yes.
Yay. The 1010 with Sandy Smith is officially back on next week. We will still be with her. We'll be talking about marriage. And I'll be giving all my 2.5 months of advice.
And I won't have
marriage.
any advice to give.
So that's why our mom is coming.
It'll be an intervention to give me all the marriage advice.
Yeah.
And you
It's going to be good.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us today. It was great to talk. We'll see you guys next week on the next episode of the 1010 podcast. Have a great day.
Yay.